The roots of inequality. Take a look at this image. Here we have an event called the first contact. So this is contact that occurred between Europeans. So we see Europeans over here, right? You can recognize them because they've got the armor that they are wearing, their helmets that they are wearing. They have swords. Here they are carrying a cross. So contact between Europeans and indigenous people of the Americas. So in this case, this would be the Taino people, who were indigenous to an island in the Caribbean. Okay, so when Europeans first made contact, right, when Christopher Columbus first arrived in the Americas, there was inequality between the Europeans and the local indigenous peoples. Uh, and here we're going to look at the roots of that inequality, right? We're going to try to find out why is it that Europeans, when they arrived in the Americas, why is it that they were able to conquer the indigenous people of the Americas and not the other way around? Okay, so this starts in 1492 when there is first contact. You can write down the blue words in your notes today. So Columbus's arrival in the Americas led to the first long-term contact between people of the Eastern and Western hemispheres. Take a look at this word, hemispheres, right? Hemisphere means like half of the planet. Okay, so we have the Western hemisphere on this side of the map. The Western hemisphere includes North and South America, right? So that's the hemisphere on the west of the world. And the Eastern hemisphere is the eastern half of the world, and that involves Africa, Europe, Asia, and Australia. Okay, sometimes we call Africa, Europe, and Asia Afro-Eurasia. Okay, and sometimes we just call like Europe and Asia. Sometimes together, those two, we call them Eurasia. All right, so just be aware of that. Okay, and so this trip that Columbus undertook started here in Europe, and he went across the Atlantic Ocean and he landed in the Caribbean islands over here. And so after his first trip, it was clear to the people around him that they had made contact with a couple of continents that they did not know existed before that. Okay, and so that's a big moment in globalization, right? Previously, like before this, these two hemispheres were not in contact with each other at all, right? But now we start to have interconnectedness between these two parts of the world. All right, and so from the perspective of Europeans, from their point of view, this was like a whole new world, right? So they call this the New World because they didn't know that the Americas were there until 1492. All right, and then they called Africa, Europe, and Asia, they refer to that as the Old World. So you can label these two different parts of the world. Okay, you can label the Western Hemisphere as being the New World and the Eastern Hemisphere as being the Old World. And then there's Australia and New Zealand, which are sometimes referred to as the New World, as part of the New World as well, and Papua New Guinea there as well, because from the perspective of Europeans, they did not make contact with those continents until much later as well, like a couple hundred years after they made contact with the Americas. So sometimes Australia, New Zealand, Papua New Guinea, Tanzania, they get tossed in with, or not Tanzania, what am I talking about? Tasmania, they get tossed in with the New World label as well. So what three tools did Europeans have in 1492 that allowed them to conquer the Americas? There were three things that Europeans had when they made first contact that helped them have a big advantage over the indigenous people of the Americas. What were those three tools? They were guns. Europeans had guns, and the indigenous people of the Americas did not. They had germs. They carried on them many diseases that they transmitted to the indigenous people. And they had steel. If you take a look at this man, this is what the first Europeans in the Americas looked like. They were dressed like this. They had metal armor. They had metal swords, right? They wore metal helmets, right? And that gave them a big advantage over the indigenous people of the Americas. So let's talk about the roots of that inequality. right? So how did European societies develop advantages over indigenous societies in the first place, right? So the question we're looking at is, well, why did the Europeans have the guns and the germs and the steel? Why did the Europeans have such a big advantage when they arrived in the Americas? Why was it not the other way around, right? When that first contact happened, why didn't the indigenous people of the Americas have the guns, germs, and the steel? Why did they not conquer the Europeans instead? Okay, so how did European societies develop the advantages that they had over indigenous societies? And why did Europeans conquer the Americas and not the other way around? Why was it not that the people of the Americas arrived in Europe on big boats and had guns and conquered the Europeans? Why didn't that happen? So to try to answer this question, we go to a guy called Jared Diamond. So Jared Diamond wrote a groundbreaking book a number of years ago called Guns, Germs, and Steel. And it was turned into a little like docuseries with National Geographic. And you guys are going to do a little bit of reading about what he researched and what he learned and taught the world. So there is a handout that was distributed in class. So if you were in class, you can read that. If you were not in class, it should be in D2L. Here, I'm just checking D2L right now to make sure that it's in there. So let's take a look here. Okay, we go in D2L. We click on Social 10. Did I put it in there? This is the moment of truth. Resources, content, and then Unit 2A, because we're in Unit 2A now. Oh, there it is. Okay, so the roots of inequality, right? So you click on that, and it looks like this. So if you're working from home, you read this handout here. Okay, so first read the first, side of the page, I guess, right? And then answer the first 4 questions, and then read the back side of the page and answer the next 3 questions. Okay, so here are the first 4 questions on the first half of the page, and then flip over, and the next 3 questions are on the back side of the page. These questions, of course, are in your notes. Okay, while you are reading, you might encounter some words that you don't understand. This is a list of words that you might encounter on the first side of the page. So if you need to, you can pause the video on this screen and have this with you to understand the words. And then for the back side of the page, you've got these words and their definitions and synonyms. All right, so there you go. Good luck. Do a good job, and I hope you'll learn a couple things.